Hi, today we're going to get into your product or service, but we're going to discuss being overwhelmed versus being fruitful. When you're building your product or service, the sometimes you can get overwhelmed. I know that some people have been called into business because of a job loss. Some people have been called into business because something else happened in their life. There are others who have a gift or a talent that they wanted to share with a specific audience. Well, whatever the case, you've been called into business by God, and it sometimes can be overwhelming. Um, I know that entrepreneurs try their best to get busy, and they start diving into the business, and they start diving in with a lot of work. They start spending a lot of money and a lot of time, and sometimes some of that can be very, very frustrating. And after a while, with all of this work that people have to do, people can get overwhelmed. And so let's look at the characteristics of an overwhelmed person. Okay. Um, the overwhelmed person has self made tight deadlines. The self made tight deadlines are usually caused by some kind of pending bill or some kind of pending penalty. So they say that, oh my goodness, I got to start a business and it has to be running in 2 weeks because I owe this bill. Well, that's a difficult situation, and that person can become overwhelmed. The next thing is the overwhelmed person has lots of incomplete ideas. So, thinking is usually the first thing the overwhelmed person does. They think a lot. They think about the problems to many different solutions, and then they come up with another problem, and they come up with another solution, and they kind of spin out of control because worry gets in there. And then they try to address the worry, and then a little bit of fear sets in, and they try to address the fear. And so the mind becomes flooded with things to do. Um, the next thing is for the overwhelmed person is the list seems daunted. Uh, Lists seem daunting. And just writing things down on a list becomes harder and harder for the overwhelmed person because this list can get kind of long. And when you have a long list of things to do and you're overwhelmed, you can get caught like, oh my goodness, I'm overwhelmed just looking at the list. And so that list thing can seem kind of daunting. Um, Another thing is that overwhelmed people become tired and sleepy. When you're churning over and over trying to figure out the solution, and there's a lot of things to do, that can become emotionally tiring as well as physically tiring and spiritually tiring. And so it's understandable that all of these things can weigh a person down. Um, this leads to frustration. It seems like everything is complicated and everything seems to be breaking, and just the little things are annoying once the overwhelmed person gets frustrated. And so it gets this frustration can also be vented at other people. And sometimes the frustration can be vented at God as well. And the last thing is that blame blame can come out. And if a person is overwhelmed and frustrated, then the blame can be pointed at other people, and the blame can be pointed at God. And so this is a very difficult situation um, for a person to be in. But if you're overwhelmed, just know this for real. It's okay to be overwhelmed. It's okay. Um, God knows and understands that you're overwhelmed, and He has a remedy for that. Um, he's not that hard on you, and you shouldn't be that hard on you either. I'm not saying that you shouldn't hold yourself to a standard. What I'm saying is that sometimes you're just a little bit too hard on yourself. If you couple yourself with Christ, he says, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." And so what he's saying is, if you just connect with me, I'll be your strength, and I will be there whenever you're weak. And so um, he's going to walk with you on your load. Okay, let's take a look at the fruitful person. Okay, fruitful person creates realistic deadlines. The fruitful person knows that problems will happen, and they plan for those problems to happen. They allow a little bit of extra time to get that thing done. And so there are no tight deadlines. They already know that this thing is going to take a little bit longer than I think. And so let me go ahead and spend a little bit more time on this and know that when I'm finished with this piece, I'm just going to put that on the shelf and I'm going to work on something else. All right. The fruitful person also uses a wish list. Keeping track of all the work is very important. I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to get accomplished, and sometimes you're going to have to prioritize that work. And so it's very important that you use a wish list versus a to-do list. Um, this gives you permission to leave some things on the list versus you have to get all these things done. A wish list is more of the prioritized way of doing the work and just making sure that, yeah, I'll get to that later, but for now, I'm going to go ahead and work on these few items that are grouped together. Okay. The next thing that a fruitful person does is they complete small, valuable things first. Sometimes it's better to get a little bit of momentum. And when you're trying to get that momentum, doing the smallest, most valuable thing first is something that just gives you a win. A wish list helps you identify all the work that you need to do, and then you can prioritize and ask yourself, what's the easiest thing I can do right now? And then you can also ask yourself, what can I start on and work on right now that will give me the biggest bang for the buck? Once you do start working on that, work on it until you finish it. Do the small thing and work on it until you finish. This way you have that sense of accomplishment when you finish it. Okay. The person that is fruitful is also gets energized. This person gets energized by small accomplishments, and the small accomplishments that you do, those small valuable things that you do, each time you finish one, you should celebrate. I mean, you should get excited. You should celebrate because it took some effort, and once you get that momentum and you do a couple of things, trust me, you're gonna be celebrating quite often. All right. The fruitful person also knows when to rest. Shutting down for the night intentionally is very, very vital. I mean, you have to get some rest. You can't work 24/7. So making sure that you're fresh and knowing that this thing can wait until tomorrow. Do as much as you possibly can today and work on some more tomorrow. And then this way you'll come in with a fresh mind. Um, the fruitful person also accepts mistakes. In other words, mistakes don't just make the fruitful person roll over and die. Mistakes happen, and they know that mistakes do happen. And so, since they do, the fruitful person says, "Okay, I can handle the mistake. Let me go ahead and just go ahead and do that part over or redo it. That's all right. It's all right that mistakes will happen, and it doesn't hurt." Okay. As a matter of fact, you learn a lot from mistakes, don't you? Okay. And the last thing that a fruitful person does is they slow down to address the complex. Your first answer may not be the correct answer. And so when you're working on something complex, it's best to come up with a solution, start working on it one day, sleep on that, and then come back to it to see if that's the correct solution. There's been many times where I started working on something pretty complex, and when I went to sleep and I came back the next day, I had a better idea, a better approach to this complex item. And so I would say that you have to sometimes just slow down enough to be able to address the complex. All right. Um, the last thing is this is for everybody. Take frequent breaks. I mean, just take some breaks often. Just get up and walk around, play some games, do something that's different than your business, and enjoy yourself for a while. Um, and I know that you're going to get a lot of work done. Okay. So speaking of work, let's start addressing your wish list. And so I know that you remember the wish list. Um, this is a list of things that you need to do to get work done. And so you have to remember we broke down God's vision into this large thing we called an epic. We also broke the epic down into groupings called features. Um, and each feature has a piece that is very important to your business. And so we have to make sure that we are breaking these things down into smaller and smaller pieces. The features we did talk to a lot of different people, and we put the ideas in front of our customers, and we started getting feedback. And so we are on our way to not only building a crowd, but we're also on our way to building our business. Um, but one of the things is sometimes we have all these things to do. So I would say start by drawing a picture. Start by drawing a picture. And what we're going to do today is we're going to draw a picture based upon our epic. Let's start with the epic. Remember, the epic is that grouping, that high level grouping. I liken this to movies. I like movies, and groups of movies are called an epic. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is a group of movies, and each one of those is a feature film. And so you have different features of your business that you have to be able to group together in something that makes sense. So let me give you some examples of high-level groupings. Customer intake. This could be a high-level grouping if your business is one that is of a service, and you have to make sure that you have people that fill out things, and there's a process to bringing that customer in. And so you may have something like intake forms, or agreements, or orientation, or policies. And so now I know what my customer intake looks like. I have a picture of it. I know that I have to work on intake forms, so I build my intake forms until I'm finished. I know that I have to work on agreements, so I build those agreements until I'm finished. I build my orientation, I build my policies. I know that now I'm finished with customer intake. Okay, let's give another example. How about order to cash, or some people call it payments? All right. I may have something like online ordering, or I may also have online payments. I may have in-store ordering and in-store payment. In other words, somebody comes into your location and pays face to face. And so I may have to have some kind of online ordering application or some kind of way to accept orders online. So once I get that built or get that acquired, then I move on to my online payment system and make sure that they work together. And so once I get that built, or I look at the things that work in the store, and in terms of ordering, or the payment process. This may be by paper. Okay, it may be a cash register that accepts cash. I don't know. But each one of these, once I get this done and built, I'm ready. It's off to the side. The part of the list is now done. So now you see my little indents. You notice that I have my epic at the top, and then these are the features that the customer is going to interact with. Each feature needs a definition that is meaningful to the customer and meaningful to the business. The features that the customers interact with, they have to be very understood by the customer. Your customers need to understand the feature, and it has to be very, very clear and concise. For example, if your business delivers specialty packages to people, then the customers who buy your product or service will need to know if you're delivering something heavy or delicate, or the way it's going to be delivered and how soon. And so the customers need to know all the things about your delivery service. But guess what? Customers don't like to read a lot. And so you're limited to the amount of information that you can put in the description for each feature of your business. So you have to break the features down so that you say something like heavy package delivery, and then you would describe that in 160 characters, specifically 160 characters or less, so that search engine optimization can look at that particular section to make sure that it picks up all the characters and not only the name, but the description for that particular feature of your business. We'll go into that a lot later. But you want to be able to direct your customers to another page if you have more information that you want to talk about for that particular feature. I would suggest that you get away from using words, and maybe if you have a lot to say about that particular feature of your business, why don't you put that in a video, and so that people can watch that video on that particular feature of the business. All right, so let's get back to our case study. Okay, our case study is with Anayashe and Kukura. Anayashe wanted to sell Kukura some cakes that she was making, but Kukura told her that she needed some packaging. So guess what she did? She developed an epic to deal with packaging. She called that epic packaging. Kukura told her that she needed to have a universal product code on her packaging, a UPC, to sell her cake. And for the US, a UPC can be obtained from a nonprofit organization named GS1. This organization provides global trade item numbers, G10s, and barcode images that are placed on the package so that they can be scanned by a scanner. Retail grocery stores have scanners, and also other organizations have scanners, and they can associate a price to your product. She wrote this down on a wish list that she needed to get artwork, she needed to get designs, she needed to get nutrition information, the UPC barcode, she needed a place for freshness date on her packaging. She had to think about all of that stuff, so she made sure that her packaging epic had that on her wish list. She was somewhat creative, but she needed help with the packaging design. When the designer asked her for her logo, she realized she wasn't quite ready. She said, "Logo? Well, when was I supposed to provide a logo?" The designer explained that the logo is an image that represents the brand of the company. And since this was her first company, she didn't even have a logo. So she said, "Do I need one now? I'm just starting." The designer replied, "You need a temporary logo until you get a permanent one. This will be an additional charge for your packaging, but what you really should think about the branding elements of your business and not just throw a logo together. You should take your time building that logo." And that was some great advice from the designer. So instead of getting overwhelmed, Anayashe wrote branding down on her wish list, and she would one day get around to getting to that branding, all the branding elements, and think about all that. But for now, she asked the designer to work on a temporary logo until she could go forward with something else down the road. She celebrated. I mean, she celebrated because she got her package design. She added to her wish list the notes for encouragement that she wants to place inside the packaging. And she made sure that she had the nutrition information and everything else on the packaging. So she was really, really excited. What about you? What about your business? What pictures can you begin drawing, and what parts of the business will your customer interact with? Will the parts of the business that they interact with be spelled out very clear and concise in 160 characters? Can you take small steps to take the most valuable thing that you can do right now and start on that right now? Okay. I know that if you're overwhelmed, slow down, get some rest, pray about it, and then you'll be all right. Quiet down and you should be good. All right? Lots more to come. If you enjoyed this, can you share this video? If you have a question, put it in the chat. And if you have something else that's on your mind that you want to see, let me know about it. Okay? All right. Be well, serve well.